Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Two in the Cooler. If it's your first time listening, don't forget to share the podcast, because if you enjoy it, obviously your friends are going to enjoy it too. As always, you can follow us on our socials, Instagram and Twitter at Two in the Cooler, and subscribe to our YouTube page. We've got clips and full episodes there. And on Twitter, that'll also let you vote in our Who Would Win of the Weeks that we do every week. Including this one, we've got a pretty good battle. So if you want to have your voice heard, we want to hear from you and see who you think would win. This episode of Two in the Cooler comes to you in affiliation with Instacart. Instacart, like I always say, and it's true, the best way to get your groceries in 2020. I gotta be honest, going to the grocery store can make me a little anxious sometimes. And if you are like that as well, why not avoid the whole ordeal and use Instacart? Have your groceries delivered right to your door in as little as 1 hour. The Instacart employees will pick out for you the freshest produce. They'll get you exactly what you want, some of your favorite products from some of your favorite local stores. Right now, Two in the Cooler listeners get free delivery on their first order of $35 or more. Just use the link in our show notes and get yourself that deal. On the podcast today, we've got a great guest, Eric Piotrowski. He is a sports broadcaster. He's a student at Canisius. He also plays hockey with Matthew. He was a lot of fun to talk to. Really smart guy. Had some really great insight on not just sports, but the world of sports broadcasting. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. So get into it. Here we go.
And we're back here, folks, coming at you
It's like
with
we never
episode.
left.
Yeah, like we never left. It's only been 7 days since the last time you would have been able to hear our voices, so it's really not that long.
Well, you can hear them anytime if you...
Well, yeah, you could just listen to them over and over again. I feel like I do have a pretty soothing voice.
You...
Like Attenborough.
Yeah.
Yeah, just narrating the National Geographic.
What I was comparing myself to was the episode of Psych, Andy, when Gus plays he does that radio show. That's more of what I would consider myself. But, it can be looked at different ways. Episode 28 here. Lot going on this week. Very special guest here. Teammate of mine, friend of mine. Andy just introduced himself to him not too long ago. Eric Piotrowski. How about you say hello to the folks, Eric?
How you guys doing? Thank you very much for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. I know Andrew is definitely excited too. I know he's got I kind of informed him a little bit about just some of the stuff you do and showed him your Instagram and stuff like that. So you are are you sports journalism or sports broadcast? What's your actual major at Canisius?
So I'm a dual major, sport management and journalism with a concentration in sports broadcasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds pretty...
Yeah, so I never knew...
Yeah, not too bad. Double dipping a little bit.
I've seen you bouncing around that department.
Sorry, say that again?
Yeah, right over there, Andy, we had a little technical... Yeah, we had a little technical...
That's on you, Matthew.
No, Pio said it too.
No, we're buffering, but we'll get through it.
Yeah,
I was listening to the Ian Hurtubise one and then Bauer one. And so I guess technical difficulties just kind of goes along with the brand. You got to just power through it.
Yeah, we definitely power through it. Yeah, we've actually
good.
we've been looking into some solutions for it, but for the meantime,
I'm also in the bunker of Canisius here in the tunnels, so my Wi-Fi can't be too good.
I see you. Are you in the Wire studio there?
Yes, sir. Yeah. This is the Canisius College student radio station, now up and running. We're trying to get our budget proposal submitted and approved so we can get it back on air. But yeah, this is right below the dining hall off of Hughes. So
yep.
Not too great with Wi-Fi, but it is a good setup.
No, it's a great setup, and it's funny that you bring that up because I wanted to talk about this, and I'm sure Andy will have some questions, but mine's more of a... Mine has nothing. It's not really a question at all. But when you first started, because you were a big part in kind of reopening the Wire, right?
Right.
So when that was going on, I don't know if you remember this, but you had kind of pitched the idea of like, hey, anybody that wants to do like radio shows or fill up radio airspace, like come to me. And this was long before I had even thought about doing the podcast, and Andy came to me with that idea. But I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll do a radio show. I didn't care if I was talking about sports. I would have sat there and talked to myself for an hour. I didn't care, but I would have loved to do a radio show, and I could have had one of those things, Andy. What are they called? Soundboards.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you would have gotten your soundboard.
Yeah, I'm big into. I've been pushing to get a soundboard for myself for the podcast, PO, but I don't know if it's in our budget. And I personally, it's definitely not in my personal budget. So I've been waiting for maybe an anonymous donor or something like that to step up and buy me a soundboard.
We're starting a GoFundMe for Matthew's fart noise machine.
Mm-hmm. Virtually.
Yeah, it's pretty nice just kind of messing around, potting people up and down. It's fun. It kind of just adds another level to like broadcasting.
Yeah, and that's something that I think you and Andrew kind of have in common is a lot of that technical aspect, whether it be TV or radio, stuff like that. And I don't know how much you guys talk about time, obviously something that Andrew's really involved in. So I'm curious to get more into that. But before we do that, just to check back in real quick, Andy, how have you been since the last time we talked?
Pretty good. It is, this is going to be certainly a pretty sports-forward episode of the podcast, which is good. But just to give everybody a little taste of where I'm at, I've been consuming D&D content basically nonstop this whole week. So I'm definitely on the other end of the spectrum right now. So I'm kind of ready.
As in Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, as in Dungeons and Dragons.
What So for the listeners who don't know, Pio, I'll let you know this. Andrew and his friends play Dungeons and Dragons quite frequently when Andy's home. Like, I'll come home and they'll be in the basement just rolling their 12-sided die or whatever. And what kind of content have you? Are you playing online? Is there a tournament?
No,
are you just watching people play?
I have no idea how to even do that. If there is like something for that, but I just what was I watching? I watched all of 30 Rock. Like, I binged it. I rewatched it. So I needed something else.
30 Rock?
And I was just kind of floating around. And there's this show by College Humor. And it's just, you literally, this is going to sound so bad, but you just watch people, like, play D&D. But, they're, like, comedians and stuff. So, like, it's funny. And, I've just been, like, watching that basically nonstop. So I'm ready for something on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, I've never played D&D, but there's a podcast that I frequently listen to, and they're funny. It's a sports podcast, but they did a segment where every other Wednesday for a month or a couple months, they brought a dungeon master in. He had a doctorate in Dungeons and Dragons, which I don't know where you get that, but you should look into it. Fake. And they brought him in, and they played D&D like on the podcast, and they just pick up like where they left off, and it was fucking hysterical. Like, it's definitely because there's a lot of like creative space, you know what I mean? So if you're a funny person and if you're playing with a group of funny people, you could definitely have some fun.
That's the thing.
I've never played around, but I've seen them on TV, like Stranger Things, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah,
it looks unreal because, like what you're saying, I think like the one guy kind of creates the way that you go about the game, like the game master.
Yeah.
If you've got a good guy that can kind of toss in some jokes or have a great route, yeah, obviously it makes it so much better. But I wish I could have a game. Maybe I got to stop by and roll the die.
Yeah, see if Andy's around. He'll roll the die with you.
Literally anytime. I'm ready to go.
So, Andy, now, like, just briefly, because I don't want to talk about this the whole time. But so there is, you can either make your own story or there's like pre-made like quests that people have already made, right?
Yeah, the company that bought Dungeons and Dragons, the IP, a couple years ago. They're called like Wizards of the Coast or something like that. They changed basically everything. They created the new edition, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of the reasons that it's started to become, kind of so popular again and in the mainstream. And it's definitely helped to things like Stranger Things and Big Bang Theory. But this 5th edition is like pretty easy to understand, and it's basically focused entirely on your 20-sided die rolls. and they have released a ton of new campaigns, like pre-written campaigns. But you can also make your own, which is really cool because you kind of realize like the pre-written ones that you get, they're all like medieval and like and they take place in like that kind of like Lord of the Rings world type deal. You're going to like villages and stuff, but the game is basically, through intention or not, structured so that you can play in any circumstances. Like you could, write something, a homebrew is what they call it, and have it set in space, slang, or have classic. It set, you can have it set in like your hometown, right? You can have it set in modern times, anything like that. So that's the thing. There's a lot of like, a lot of things are based on rules, but the fact that you can do anything is where like the humor comes in when you're playing with like a good like group of people who kind of don't take themselves too seriously, right? So it can be a lot of fun.
Well, I don't see myself ever really creating my own Dungeons and Dragons quest, but I definitely
you never know. Maybe the first one you do, you just get hooked and you just can't stop creating games.
That's what I've seen
could
with
be,
like
but I don't really.
Have you ever watched Community, Eric? The show Community?
No.
Excellent,
very
excellent
good show.
But Matthew, as you know, they have one of their biggest episodes is the Dungeons and Dragons episode, where they play this campaign called Caverns of Draconis, which is not real. It's made up like for the show. But that is the one I like wrote that out and like made one based on that, and it's like based on the show, and like that's the one I did for my friends. So you can do stuff like that.
I think that you might have too much time on your hands. However,
well, not anymore. That was like that was when I was in college, so I didn't have anything to do.
Nice, classic. As we side away from the Dungeons and Dragons and the mystical world, let's get more into a little, like you were talking about sports-wise, because that's a big thing that's a big part of Pio's background. So I know, one, from knowing him, two, if you check out like your social medias and stuff, you could tell you've done a lot of different internships. One specifically with the Bisons and a couple different TV like stuff like that. What like talk a little bit about that? And I know Angela will definitely have some follow-up questions, but just to get the ball rolling, kind of what you do from your major and what opportunities that's brought to you so far.
Quick overview, I guess, of all like the broadcasting stuff I've done was back in high school. I think it was like junior and senior year. I interned with the Bisons as a broadcast assistant. So as like time got on, I was there for 3.5 years almost. So each year that I did it, more responsibility kind of got tossed towards me, which I loved. So by the time I was leaving there, I was a pregame host, postgame host of their like pregame and postgame shows on the radio, and I kind of helped with like setup, take the broadcast, did a couple player interviews for the pregame, for the postgame, did mid-game interviews with Bobby Meacham, the manager at the time. And then moving into Canisius, I started doing like play-by-play for the men's hockey team, a little bit for men's lacrosse, and then that kind of dissolved a little bit. And then got an internship with Channel 4 2 summers ago. Was their sports intern, wrote stories for the news. They allowed me to kind of stay back one night, and the producers weren't too happy. They had to work a little bit of extra overtime, but they allowed me to be in front of the camera, get some reps in. So it's good to have something on my reel in case I want to apply to them next year, because I'm a senior currently. But yeah, it's been unbelievable. All of these opportunities I've had, I just try to take all of it and use it.
Yeah, well, it seems...
And I think I've done a couple videos for the Canisius club hockey team. They're out there floating around on YouTube. A couple of just random like road trip videos when we went to Utah. Took a nice plane trip.
I remember that. I had a bit of I believe I had a bit of an interview.
Yeah, you got the interview
on that specific video. I remember that. Yeah, you put a camera in front of my face, I'll talk for hours.
We know. Yeah, that sounds like something worth looking up, though. We've talked about some of those hockey road trips on the podcast before. Yeah, so that sounds like
Oh yeah,
something
they're
that
unbelievable.
people might want to check out. But
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
it sounds to me like you probably should be able to get a job anywhere right out of school. I mean, just talking to you for like a few minutes, you obviously carry yourself in like a good way, and you have a good like voice for broadcasting, which is like maybe the most important thing. Maybe not. I have no
Thank you,
idea.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, so I know with the Bisons, and you did a little radio work with ESPN that involved minor league baseball too, right?
Right.
So I can't speak for everybody, I guess, but minor league baseball, not a sport that I think too many people are super, super familiar with. Were you familiar with it when you started doing that work with the Bisons?
No, not even close. I've actually had some funny stories my first year there. Like, obviously, you kind of keep score, but when you're keeping score, when the batter's up and it's like, oh, let's say he hits like a grounder to short and then he gets thrown out at first. Like, I put like, oh, H hit the SS for short over to first base, and they're like, no, dude, you got to hit it. It's like 6-3 put out for 6 for shortstop, and then 3 being like for the first base, and it's like a 6-3 put out, or if it's like a pop up to center field, it'd be like a P8. So I was kind of just lost on how to keep score, but eventually I figured it out. Yeah, just a lot of kind of learning as you go, and it's a lot of kind of like hurry up and wait type of work too. But those guys over there were unbelievable. Ben Wagner, who's now the voice of the Blue Jays up in Toronto for their radio show, and then Pat Malacaro, who's currently the voice of the Bisons now. Those guys were tremendous. Like, I had no business being in a minor league radio booth, a junior, senior in high school, and just kind of botching their show. I'm not going to lie. But they were cool. They were really positive and helped me out and kind of just like pushed along the way. But yeah, I was lost for the first couple of games. But you learn.
Okay, so is that kind of how you approach? Because, you know, to be in your field, you have to have at least basic knowledge of just about every kind of sport. I'm sure there are ones that you are less familiar with. How do you approach having to do broadcasts about a sport that you maybe don't know as well as some of the others?
Yeah, hockey is number one. That's the biggest one I've been playing since I can remember. So that kind of came naturally to me as I did color commentating for Canisius D1. But like, I had to do a women's basketball game. I think it was like freshman or sophomore year here. I'm not the biggest fan of basketball. I do enjoy watching. I watched like the NBA Finals recently. But I didn't know all the fouls, the technical fouls, stuff like that like the nitty gritty actual basketball fans know. So I bought 2K, and I just had my roommates just rip through games with me, one after another, and it took forever because every time they would foul, I'm like, wait, like why? Why is he going to the line now? Why do I get the ball back? So EA Sports really kind of helped me out with my broadcasting skills.
That is awesome. That's an answer that I did not expect. But that makes so much sense. That's such a. I feel like that's such a smart, more innovative thing than trying to like read a rule book or something like that.
Right. Yeah, you get to actually play it, and you make your own mistakes, so then you kind of learn by what you did.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, I've seen Andrew play 2K. He's not very good at it. So
I'm pretty good.
Neither am I.
Actually.
No, I got like 50 balled every game.
Yeah, we've all been there. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
See, but to me, like, the biggest thing hearing you talk about the difference in when you're working with different sports that you're not familiar with, I'm very open with the fact that it's not so much that I don't like to step outside my comfort zone, but things like I just could never see myself like putting my I feel like I would never put myself in a situation where I would have to do something like that I was unfamiliar with, but that is a negative trait on my side, right? Like the fact that you're willing to do that and just say like, you know what, I'm going to learn as much as I can, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to be confident enough to step up there and say what I say, and so what if I fuck up kind of thing. Like, it's a very good attitude to have going into this stuff, because even, I mean, especially now, everything you say, whether it's radio, TV, especially with sports, everything's criticized, right? Nobody's ever
Right.
happy with everything that everybody says. So you're always going to be wrong in some people's eyes. So that kind of willingness to step up and put yourself in a situation that you're not necessarily 100% familiar with is definitely a positive attribute for you going forward, because it's only going to continue to grow the opportunities that come from your different broadcasting.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. And that same game for women's basketball on ESPN3, I was just kind of like, who's really watching? If I mess up, like, yeah, their parents can be mad at me because I like mispronounce her last name.
Yeah, butcher her
And as
last
soon
name.
as the broadcast is done, I check my phone. I've got a Twitter notification from our old teammate Sam Burkhart, and he's like, "Pio, great job, sorta." And I was just like, I didn't even know people were watching. And I get just kind of flamed by a buddy, but it was good. I had a good time with it.
Yeah, Berkey's a weirdo anyway. It doesn't matter.
No, he was electric. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool.
But kind of like Matthew said, you know, a lot of people are obviously passionate about sports. But if you're going to do sports broadcasting, and you know you go to school, you get a degree in it and stuff like that, you really have no idea where you might end up as far as, you know, what sport you might end up commentating on for an extended period of time. So there has to be a lot of passion involved with sport in general. I'm sure that's something you experience, but where does that come from for you?
I kind of realized that I'm not going to be able to play sports for my entire life. Yeah, there's like kind of beer leagues or men's league, and that's pretty fun, but I don't really want to sit behind a desk and just like churn out paperwork to my boss. Like, it'd be kind of cool if they're like, "Oh yeah, we need you in Atlanta to call this game, or we need you to just do a post game show." Like, that's a little bit more exciting of a day-to-day life for me. But the big thing about interning with like Channel 4 was I'm trying to stay here in Buffalo. I don't really feel like moving all the way out to like Omaha, but like I will if I have to. Obviously, you have to go somewhere lower to get up higher. But if I can just kind of start here, that'd be unbelievable.
Absolutely. And something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast is the sports fans in Buffalo. Because it really is it's just a sports city. And we've talked a lot about how, you know, thankfully, I feel like the Bills fans are getting a lot more respect now in recent years in the fan community because of...
Interesting time to bring this up.
It is? Okay. Just because of last night's game or what?
Yeah, because of last night's game, but keep on your thought.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the fans and stuff because the fans are like the most passionate. I mean, that's what it looks like for me. And with social media and stuff, like I feel like Barstool probably reposts more stuff from Bills fans than they do fans of any team in basically any sport.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Buffalo, like, with having such passionate fans, it kind of goes hand in hand with like them wanting to be the best and be competitive. So if a player messes up, like, it's kind of the reporter's job to ask that hard-hitting question because the fans want to know what the answer is and why, like, say they slowed down or they missed that extra kick or something like that. So yeah, it kind of falls a lot on the reporters too, because this entire city is just desperately wanting a championship, no matter what sport.
That kind of brings me to a question in more general that I was curious about is, you know, as a sports broadcaster and as a guy who's, you know, interviewed a lot of players, you know, you see, this was like however many years ago, but, you know, like Marshawn Lynch in those like very famous post-game interviews where he obviously didn't want to be there. Do you feel that players have any sort of, you know, responsibility or obligation to give these post-game interviews or whatever?
I definitely think they've got an obligation because, like, it's weird to think about it, but like their livelihood comes from just playing this game. So your job description is to go out there and contribute and put up points and be good for your team. But then there's also an obligation away from the field or the rink that you have to talk to media. You probably have to go out into the community and dedicate some time and show your face. But when you're talking with the media, they also teach you what to say and what not to say. So that's when you get all the super like nonchalant quotes like, yeah, full 60 minutes, get the pucks in deep. Yeah, we really got to hit the wideouts better. I think that they just need to be more personal. I think teams need to let them say what they want to say. Like in the NBA, people are becoming more of an individual instead of a team brand. LeBron James can say whatever he wants to, and the Lakers aren't going to be like, no, you can't say that. Like, no, he's LeBron James. He can kind of almost do what he wants to. If that can continue into every other sport, you'd have such better interviews, especially post-game, where if you ask, like that super famous post-game interview with Allen Iverson, where he's like, we're talking about practice.
Yeah.
Ask me about the game. If anybody else says that, they might get some heavier heat because you don't want the spotlight. You want it to make it very neutral. You want to just keep moving on to the next game and not really having being like a focal point.
That's a good point. So it kind of, the more players, so you're saying that maybe the more players are willing to do this sort of thing, the more power it's actually going to give them.
Yeah, I think it'd be more fun for the sports fan too when they're sitting there listening and watching the post-game show and they ask about, I don't know, like a second period play when they might have been on the ice too long and didn't go for a quicker change. Instead of getting the answer like, oh, yeah, I was just trying to help out the guys, just trying to pick up my man, be like, yeah, no, I got mixed up. I didn't see the communication. I didn't see that guy come off the bench, and I was trying to go, but the puck was too close. Like, if they dive more in depth with it, I think fans would appreciate it.
That's true. That is a good point. Sorry,
yeah.
Matthew, but why, if a guy doesn't want to be there, though, why make him go out there and answer questions and stuff like that? I mean, like you said, and I agree with you, I think that if a guy knows how to do that, if a player knows how to do that the right way, it can hugely, hugely benefit them. But if that's not something they're concerned with, and even with social media, I mean, if they are really that, determined to say something or be more personable, if they can reach out to fans very easily, directly. So if somebody doesn't want to be there, even if they were maybe the focal point of the game that would just happen, why force them to be there? Because like you said, I feel like you're just going to get those like very generic answers and stuff.
Yeah, that is true, and it's a super emotional job. Obviously we're not out there throwing the football 80 yards trying to win a national championship. That's not our job. That's Josh Allen's. So then when he has a tough game and now reporters are hammering him like, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Like, you kind of sucked. Like, yeah, that hurts a little bit, and that's why he doesn't want to be there. But it's kind of a part of the job. You're getting paid millions of dollars to throw around a pigskin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of holding the responsibility.
If he goes out there and gets 300 yards and 7 touchdowns, he's amped. He'll talk to anybody about anything and have the greatest quotes. But if he goes out there and gets smacked like he did yesterday, he's not going to want to talk to anybody, but you have to, both sides of the coin.
Right. So is there a way, Eric, when a guy does have kind of a poor game, or you can tell they kind of aren't really that interested in talking to anybody, is there any kind of tools that you as a broadcaster have that can kind of get them to open up a little more in those situations?
I haven't been in too many post-game scrums where I'm personally asking a question in a very heated situation, but when I would do like a pregame interview and these guys are kind of just trying to focus on the game and get ready for it, and I'm just kind of being like a little bit of a pest, being like, hey, can I get this interview? I would kind of start off with something a little bit like light and happy to get them wanting to talk about it, especially if it was a good play by them that they made a couple of days ago. And then from there, you kind of ask more game questions, like what do you think about this matchup? How do you expect to go against this pitcher, even though he's coming off of this type of game? So if you kind of start with something that they enjoy, they get into it, they'll talk more about it. But if you come right off the bat kind of with a condescending question or a negative context, they're going to be put off instantly. That interview will last 30 seconds and it'll be done. So it's just kind of player management, I guess. Just talking to people.
Yeah.
Got to be nice.
Because I feel like sports in general is such a huge industry that some people who are just fans watching can sort of start to see, these superstars like LeBron James or whoever as commodities, as products. So if you want to do what you're doing, it's, it seems so basic, but probably I imagine a lot of people forget it. Like, you got to treat these guys like people,
Right. Yeah. Everybody's human. Everybody makes mistakes, especially at their job. But I don't know. You gotta just go with the flow.
Matthew, did you have something to say? I know I cut you off there a couple times, my buddy.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I had it. Well, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking the one part, but I did have a question. But I wanted to back up just a little bit to the conversation about kind of opening players up to those interviews. Like when you watch, and I know I'm biased towards this, and I talk about it all the time. When you watch a hockey player kind of talk in an interview and say like, oh, like talk the way they do, if you watch any hockey interview, they all sound the same, especially intermission, stuff like that. Those interviews, they're all identical, right? And compared to as when you talk to a basketball player like a LeBron or somebody, and they do speak more from an individual standpoint, do you think that does have an effect on the locker room, though? Because I often think that when you see people talk and they speak more team related, that's when they're more vague, right? And I understand that the big clickbait, or like you want to get them to say something that's going to make people want to read it, right? But at the same time, especially being like so say you were broadcasting in Buffalo, it's your home team. You want those teams to succeed as well. So you don't want to push those guys to the buttons. That's going to create other issues. So then does it become almost, and I don't know if you experience this at all, because the Bisons are a little bit more on the fence as far as they are a minor league baseball team. They're not a major sports team in Buffalo that people really are diehard fans of necessarily compared to the Bills and the Sabres. So I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but I'm just trying to kind of think of the way I want to ask this. Do you think that it's more difficult to have less bias when you're doing stuff with, say, the Bills or the Sabres, because you are more okay with getting that team-built answer compared to trying to get them to say something that might create internal problems? And on top of that, do you think that, because you talked about how they're told what to say, which they pretty much are, or they're at least told, whether it be by the team or by their agents, don't sound like a douchebag. Like, I know you want to open them up, but I feel like from the sports perspective, that's kind of benefits the game as much as it doesn't benefit the industry that you're in. What do you think about that?
So you're saying I want to get that almost like clickbait title, but I don't want it to affect the locker room because I care about them winning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a line you just have to kind of tiptoe, but also that falls on my job responsibility. Like, I need those answers. I have to ask the questions.
Yeah.
As soon as you become a reporter, no matter what city you're in, no matter for what team, you're not so much that fan anymore. So say I did start working for the Sabres next season, like that, which would be awesome. I wouldn't be that Buffalo kid, that diehard Sabres fan used to go all their games. It's like, no, now I'm a Buffalo Sabres reporter. And I think Mike Harrington does a great job at doing it. He asks some really tough, hard-hitting questions that a little while ago, I think it was last season, like Reinhart kind of pulled up a little bit, back-checking, and the Sabres kind of lost it in the last couple of seconds of the third period.
Yeah, I know the exact player you're talking about. Yeah.
And you have to ask him. You have to be like, Reinhart, why'd you slow down? And that was the most awkward post-game interview to listen to.
Mike Harrington is one of those people. Yeah, Mike Harrington is one of those people that I've actually I've had a little bit of Twitter beef in my day with him. I don't always agree with his takes, but I do think he does a good job of covering the Sabres. He definitely doesn't let anything go unnoticed. So speaking of that, what do you think about the whole Taylor Hall thing?
Well, that's unbelievable. Like, what other guy can we pick up that's going to almost guarantee us 40 points? If we don't pick up Taylor Hall right now, we're going to need his 40 points dispersed amongst probably 3 or 4 players, and that's going to be bottom 6. He's still top 6 forward.
Without a doubt, he was the first overall pick, and I think that
Eric
point production alone, but I think that he was by far the biggest free agent to be signed by a different team. I mean, there's a couple guys who were restricted that went back to where they were supposed to be, I think in Tampa too. They had a few big names that they locked up again. But it's all positive feedback from the fact that everybody is happy that they signed this top 6 forward. But the two things that I'm seeing are people not understanding the contract, as well as people saying, oh my gosh, well, this doesn't make the Sabres that much better. So I know how I feel about it, but just to start with the contract, like what do you think of 1 year, $8 million?
Like, it's a lot of money, honestly, but you have to pay him. Like, he's Taylor Hall. He's going to
Yeah.
contribute. He's going to produce for your team. And 1 year is perfect. He can kind of be here, see if he likes it. And this is just a 1 year test trial. Like, everyone keeps saying about Jack Eichel and if he's going to request a trade. If we don't make playoffs this upcoming year or the following year, I think he might start to pull the chain a little bit and be like, let me go, let me go. But if Hall comes in here, Stahl's here, and we make playoffs, say we get bounced first or second round, but great team chemistry. The locker room's feeling great. The city's buzzing. Every time that they go out, someone's buying them like a Tim Hortons coffee. Like, they feel good about being here. I think Hall might sign to a 3 or 4 year deal. It might not be crazy long, like 6 or 8 years. It might be like 3 or 4, but I'm okay with that. And I think he will contribute. People are like, yeah, he's good, but he's not going to bring us to the playoffs. Like, I think he will. We missed the 2014 by less than a point. We have Taylor Hall, we're probably in there like marginally and not just being pushed out.
Yeah. I agree that. Well, I mean, I agree that I like the 1 year. I don't mind the $8 million because it's money that we had to spend, right?
Yeah.
And it's not long term, so if it doesn't pan out, there's no downfall, right? You're making a push to take the team out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You look at that plus the relationship that he already has with Ralph Kruger from Ralph Kruger's time in Edmonton. And he was very vocal about that when saying that's one of the big reasons he decided to come to the Sabres was, one, his relationship with Ralph, as well as the fact that he'll have the opportunity to play with Jack Eichel. My thing about the future contracts is you see a tendency that the Sabres have to overpay after one good season, right? We saw it with Jeff Skinner. And I'm not saying that Jeff Skinner's down and out by any means. Jeff Skinner's a hell of a hockey player, and I think that he will have a better season this year than he did last year. I think it was a little bit of a combination between he was no longer playing on that line with Jack Eichel. He had just gotten paid. He had to produce, and when he didn't find it early, he started to struggle, which happens with professional athletes. And also, a guy like Taylor Hall takes a little bit off of a guy like Jeff Skinner's slate. Here, my thing with what's going to happen next is, like I said, we have a tendency to overpay. Taylor Hall's 28 right now, so give it another year, he'll just be on 30. There's a tendency, and the salary cap's going to go up more than likely. So there's a tendency for players to want that long-term deal, that 6, 7, 8, if you're re-signing with the same team, year deal once you hit that 30 mark, because if you sign a 4-year, say he signs a 4-year deal, and then he's 33, 34, and yeah, he's got money in the bank, but he probably doesn't want to be done playing, and then a team's not going to offer that kind of money to somebody of that age. So I'm curious. I hope he has success because I wanted to make the Sabres better. But I'm curious to see what happens after that success, because if the Sabres give him a long contract, is it going to be just with the idea that they're going to end up buying him out in the end? And I just feel like the Sabres, as much as I love the move, I feel like it's going to put him in a sticky spot because he's either good, like, I don't know. I like I said, I'd like to see him do good, and if they got to pay him, they got to pay him. But I don't want it to ever backfire. But we can get away from the hockey aspects a little bit. From the playing side, there was a couple things I wanted to bring up here before we start to get into some stuff like the Who Would Win of the Week, Andy. So a lot of times when we have guests on PO, guests that either I know or Andy know, we like to talk about kind of their relationship and how they know each other. And there's one story that I will never I think it was one of the very first times I've met you off the ice, and we were all hanging out at a house down by Canisius, and there was the opportunity that somebody was going to try and shave your head. And I remember just the sheer panic of you being like, I can't have my head shaved. I have to stand in front of a camera for my internship tomorrow or the next day. Like, I can't have a racing stripe of no hair down the middle of my head. And it was quite the it was quite the back and forth, but one of the most, not that it wasn't true, but the creative ways to get out of having somebody come up to you and shave your head. You're always safe from now on, because I would never do that to somebody knowing that it would affect their actual career. But,
that was a tough one. That was a shell shock. I was like, oh boy, like how am I kind of getting out of this one? Because I didn't want to kind of whimper out of it, but it's like, dude, I have to people have to kind of look at me tomorrow. And then nobody believed me too, because I was just like a random freshman just hanging out with the guys, and they're like, what are you talking about? You're going to be on TV. Like, shut up. This is going to happen. And they're like, no, wait. So I pull up my Instagram. I just show them, like, one quick, like, little photo of me working, like, behind a camera or something. And they're like, all right. And I can see that all their heads are combining to come up with this idea. They're like, nobody sees the back of your head. Let's shave the back. And I was like, no. There's no loopholes here. Like, it's nothing. Nothing's happening. But, yeah, that was a good one. And actually, I was thinking about it on my way over here setting this up. Freshman year was a crazy year for me, especially playing for this team because I just recently graduated from St. Francis and I was playing like Federation hockey, so just varsity fed. And my first ever college game for Canisius was against back-to-back national defending champion Adrian. And I'm facing shots from kids that are just like normal, regular people. And I'm facing all these like former junior players that are just coming down the wing so fast, so incredibly fast. And Canada was one of the defensive partners out there. I don't even know what time it was, but I know it was in the first period and it was the first goal that I gave up. And I think he's on the left defense. The kid's coming down the right wing. He puts it between our other defenseman's legs, picks up the other side. He's below the circle right above the goal line and rips it like right next to my ear, next to my head, bar down. I swear to God, there's only a 1x3 inch spot for this puck to fit. And I get up and I'm like trying to compose myself and Canada skates by and he's like, what are you going to do? That was a nice shot, man. And like literally it made me feel so good. I was like, you know what? That was a good shot.
Yeah,
that wasn't on me.
Dude, that was probably to this day one of the best hockey teams I've ever played. I don't remember that exactly.
Hands down.
I remember a few of them and I am very competitive, but I also have fun when I'm competing, right? Like that's because I love to do it. Yeah, I remember I said a few things that day that I'm just like, man, because like, you know, like it was a good hockey team and like, you know, like there's guys that hold their own out there, and then there was definitely some guys that didn't, but goaltending wasn't the difference in that hockey game. And
that was a crazy game. And Adrian knew what they were doing. They scheduled alumni weekend, homecoming weekend while we were there playing. They're like, all right, let's run through this team. But it was like fun. It was fun.
It was virtually like it was like, you know how in The Longest Yard, Paul Crew tells the warden like, yeah, well, what we used to do in college was just like play the shittiest team we could find the first week every year and like kick their ass and then build confidence. Adrian was like, yeah, if you guys come down here, like, you know, like there's going to be a lot of fans. Like you guys will play like Friday, Saturday games. And like you guys, you know, get some good, like, I think it was our first games of the season. Was it not? Wasn't it?
Yes, it was the first weekend of the season and the first game I've ever played for a college career.
Yeah, we got
just got smoked.
They were very good. I remember a guy on their team saying to me, and like I was just shooting the shit with him. I think it was even after the game, like and he goes, he was like, yo, like I'm not like trying to be offensive, but he's like, why did you guys want to come down here and play us? And I looked at him, I said, dude, you think that we looked at our schedule and you think that we scheduled this game? Like I know, like they say, like any given Sunday, like if you go into a game with a negative mindset, like you're obviously going to lose. And we definitely went in knowing we were probably going to lose. And I don't do that often. But we could have played that team 100 times. We would have lost 100 times.
This wasn't any miracle where it's like, oh, yeah, we'll win that 99th game.
That was the first time I've ever actually taken a picture in a hockey game doing a ceremonial face-off.
Yeah.
So I was on their website taking the ceremonial face-off, probably with a title of the article underneath it, like Adrian runs away with opening weekend with back-to-back 8-1 wins over Canisius College. So
we were in there for a minute. The biggest highlight was leaving that first period only down 1-0, and I was so pumped. I was like, all right, that one goal wasn't on me. Like, let's go. Yeah. Second period, I got floored on it. It was like 5 quick goals in 2 minutes. It's like, all right, there goes my night. And it was obviously a homecoming and alumni weekend, and they have like this bar that hangs over like our benches.
Yeah, this is one of the most.
So they're like looking down on top of you, and I'm skating past the bench, and my night's done. And I still hear that stuff in my dreams when I'm falling asleep. They're just letting me hear it. But it was cool. It was a fun trip. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was awesome, Andy. I don't know if I've ever really explained this too. So think of like a hockey bench, right? So you have a bench. And then it was like a 3/4 bowl, their stadium. So seats all the way around 3/4. But then right behind the benches above the benches. So probably from the top of your head, 6 feet from the top of my head while I'm standing on the bench, is a bar that overhangs, like that looks right out over the ice, no glass or anything. And it was dollar beer night. And so there's just a bunch of college-age kids watching their home team kick our asses, and they're standing directly on top of us. Like, not a 6 foot difference, but it's up and down. It's not like they're 6 feet behind us. There's no glass, there's no nothing. So you can hear everything that they're saying. And they were just absolutely, and they were drunk. I remember so specifically, we still say it all the time, like some of the guys that heard it. There was this kid, had to be hammered. I would have rather been him at the time, up watching the game than playing in the game. And he yells, "Hey, coach, where'd you get your suit? The toilet store?" And like the whole bar dies laughing. Like, stupid joke, right? But the whole bar dies laughing. Like, everybody's like,
Oh my God.
Like 4 or 5 seconds go by. The kid next to him yells, "Hey, coach, where'd you get your team? The toilet store?" And the bar erupts in laughter. And we're sitting there like, holy fuck, dude. Like, we're here. It's Friday. We have to sleep in a hotel, wake up, keep ourselves busy all day Saturday, play again Saturday night, and then drive home from Adrian, Michigan overnight Saturday. Like, just not a situation that you wanted to be in.
It was wild.
That's brutal. What a terrible it's not a terrible idea, but no, that's a terrible idea to put that bar there. What a terrible experience.
It's an awesome.
You guys.
I wish every home rink I ever had bar.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you're the visiting team, you're trembling.
Those kids were living rent free. There was a kid on our team who wore like a built-in neck guard, and during the national anthem, he's standing on the blue line. He got the nod to start the game, and there's a kid in the bar already. "Coach, are you fucking kidding me? You started that kid? He's got a neck guard on. You got to get that kid off the ice." Like, screaming. It was nonstop, 60 minutes of just absolute hell. You're just trying to smile. Like, you're just like, dude, whatever. Like, I'm playing hockey right now. I could be doing worse things. Like, just try to enjoy it, I guess. But, Pio, before we get into who would have been the weekend, this is also, Andy, not to keep going, but I just wanted to, is there any specific story that you could think of from your time, whether it be from freshman year to now that you're in your senior year? It could be on the road, on the bus, at the rink. It could be at the house. Any like good story that you could think of that like just like based on kind of like, I don't know, like how much fun we used to have as a team and stuff like that. That I don't know, Andy or the people listening might be interested in, whether it involves me or just all the guys or. Now, I know that puts a lot of people on the spot, but we like to, get a little bad sometimes.
I like playing for Canisius. The best moments have been hanging out with the guys, like by far. Like, the team is just awesome, especially when you guys had your house over there on Hughes. Like, that was the place to be no matter what time of the day. But a lot of like my good stories kind of come from like freshman year because that team was just something else. Like, we had some characters that just made it fun to be there.
Yeah, because we had like Yasu,
my old goalie partner. Connor Hasley was still there. Like, all the seniors, Stan Paulo. Like, it was a great team. Berkey, So it was kind of more of a shell shock because I wasn't really around that type of situation, especially in high school. Like, we didn't take too many bus trips, if any. And coming out of the restaurant on I think it was still like that same Adrian trip. I'm coming out of the restaurant just all nonchalant, like, oh, yeah, that's a pretty good meal, like, pretty full. Like, what do I really want to do now? Like, go back to the hotel, take a nap. And I just feel like a little tap on my shoulder, like, hey, you're it. And I'm like, what? I turn around and look at the entire team. They're gone. Gone. I'm not even joking. I was standing there. They're all within, like, arm distance, instantly within a blink of an eye, 20 feet away from me, running, full sprint to the bus. I was like, what am I doing? Like, do I go tag somebody? Like, are we playing tag? And then I was just like, so I start hauling ass. I find the closest person to me, I think it was like McCune or somebody, and I tag him like, tag, you're it. And I'm just still running like a chicken with his head cut off. Like, I don't know where to go. And then all the seniors were like, touch the bus, touch the bus. So finally I put my hand on the bus, and I was like, can somebody explain this to me, please? And then Biddle was, I think, the last one coming out of the restaurant because he had to stop and use the bathroom. And McCune just waited for him, just lurking around the corner of the bus. got him real quick, touched the bus, and then Biddle had to sing the national anthem in front of everybody. But they were all just great stories. That one will always stick with me, but the team was fantastic.
I think that's not the first bus tag story told on the podcast. You knew about bus tag, right?
Yeah, we talked about just like the fact.
I think we talked about bus tag with Yoakum a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it might have been with Ian because Ian has a pretty funny video of me singing karaoke on the bus. But I don't need to be tagged to sing karaoke on the bus. I won't lose tag, but I'll sing anyway. If you got to get the boys going, you got to get the boys going.
Yeah. You and Durkee always used to belt them out in the back.
Yeah. We've definitely sung a song or two. But yeah, I just love talking about like stories like that and just that group of guys. I mean, every guy that I've played hockey with at Canisius really is still. It's been, a lot of times like people as they get older talk about how they like fall out of love with the game, right? Like it just becomes more of a job and stuff like that. And I think that like I definitely know the feeling, but playing on this team at Canisius, through ups and downs, and as much as I do like to win, and there's been times where we've struggled with that, but my God, it's been so fun. It just makes me never want to stop,
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people kind of lose that, like you're saying, that passion, that drive for it. Especially a lot of players lose it in high school. And the only goal I really had was like, let's play some college hockey. I'll obviously foot the bill for it because this is like my fun having. And it just kind of shows like my parents for dedicating all the money and time that they did drive me to the rink at 6 a.m. when they're super tired. It's like, no, like I did enjoy this sport. It wasn't just like a quick little 7-year run. Like I'm now putting in my own time and energy to it.
Yeah, and Andy can attest to that because he spent a lot of miserable weekends in places that he did not want to be in growing up.
Yeah. It comes back to the family. It really does. Yeah. You need a good support system.
Yeah, definitely. So how about we jump in a little who would win of the week, Andy? How do you think? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's do it. I want to talk about this one like pretty badly, and I think we should mention the honorable mention, but we don't have to right away. Why don't you go ahead and set it up though, Matthew?
I didn't remember who we're doing.
Don Cherry.
Harry
Carey. Two of the biggest personalities, I would say,
I forgot about Harry
sports
Carey.
announcing in recent years. Like, if I know who Don Cherry is, then he's a personality. You know what I mean? And obviously, Harry Carey.
It's funny that it's funny that you referred to it as recent years though, because if my research is correct,
not recent years, but just
passed away before I was even born.
Yeah. He died in February of 1998. Gone but not forgotten.
Yeah, so before I was born. No, never will be. But yeah, I got a lot of things to say right off the bat. Too, as of always, this is a fight. Don't forget. But a big part of that always comes charisma, and because you don't see these guys really fight because they're broadcasters. And also, I want to say that this is prime Don Cherry, prime like Hockey Night in Canada, Saturday night. Like you're watching a fuzzy half-color TV screen, like when he's first bringing out these colorful suits, and he's youthful and just going absolutely apeshit every night, saying whatever without any repercussion. So that's the Don Cherry I would like to focus on here. But I don't know. You want to start us off, Pio, Andy? Who wants to take the first crack at it?
Let me jump in if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'll go straight up. I am gonna go with Harry Carey in this one.
Yeah,
a few weeks ago.
That's the most predictable thing ever. Before Andrew even gives an argument, I can tell you right now.
It doesn't matter
because
that it's
he
predictable. It doesn't matter if it's predictable.
He thinks he knows who I'm going to pick, so he instantly picks the other person.
Matthew, this might come as a surprise to you. This might come as a surprise to you, Matthew. I don't base everything I do off of what you think. I do not give a shit who you're going to pick. I'm picking Harry Carey because I know because he's going to win this fight. Now, a few weeks ago, we did Battle of the Rons, Ron Swanson, Burgundy, Ronald Reagan. And part of the discussion with all three of those guys is that they kind of had that like old school like glass of scotch and slug 'em, type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't the most
Red meat,
fit guys, yes, but they were
Maybe
like red
stogie.
meat kind of, like
Yeah.
old school tough. And that's what Harry Carey is, in my opinion. I think that even though when he, because I'm going to say like this is prime Harry Carey in my opinion is Cubs Harry Carey. He started working with the Cubs in '81, so he's already pretty old, but he's still got something. Okay, and like when he really like let himself loose, I mean, there's no stopping this guy. I don't think that he would, like, as soon as Don Cherry stepped to him, he'd be all in. He'd be like, okay, if you want a piece of the old Cracker Jacks, then here's your prize. Pop, pop, pop. If that makes any sense, but you know what I mean.
Kind of going off of that, I totally agree. They're kind of just two like old gritty guys.
They definitely.
But everyone like Canada, you might be or Matt, you might be picking Don Cherry possibly, because he's just like a grinder, especially when he played. But Harry Carey, don't sleep on those glasses, those thick Coke bottle glasses. He sees them coming in. If he can slip one hard jab and just connect, he might be down. He might be
He's got fists like
sheep.
rocks.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Let me hit you guys with a little bit of knowledge and screw your heads back on straight. Don Cherry played, he coached, and he obviously did Hockey Night in Canada. So I've heard stories, a lot of stories through other podcasts, through the internet, all this stuff about him in his hockey days before he was broadcasting. And I've listened to him broadcast a million times. Hockey as a sport has been making this big push towards not making people's brains mush when they retire. Honestly, like it's become like health conscious point where they understand that when stuff happens in these games that they're allowing to happen, it has long-term consequences on their players, and their bottom line being player safety, because they need these guys to play and have long careers and maintain their level of athleticism and keep their sport alive, right? They want people to watch, but they want to do that through skill now rather than physicality because of those long-term effects. Don Cherry, up until he stopped broadcasting, was one of the only like hockey media people that would still just stand in there and be like, just fuck people up. Like, I mean, he understood the rules and he knew that where players had to draw the line. But if it was even slightly in the gray area, Don Cherry was loving it. He loved old school hockey. He loved fighting. He loved. I'd go as far as to say he might love concussions. Like, he might love when people get severely injured. I heard a story. I have to do a little bit of previous research real quick before I tell this story. But I want to hear Andy or PL, if you guys can come up with one good reason as to why Harry Carey would win this fight, from outside of the fact that he's this manly man.
Oh, sure.
Because that's all I've heard. I have no evidence to support that so far. And I'm not very familiar with his, outside of the fact that I know he was a baseball announcer and he was fairly charismatic. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know.
Fairly charismatic is an understatement. Harry Carey, for one thing, did not give a fuck. Here's a pretty well-known thing I think that Harry Carey said one time, but one of my favorite Harry Carey quotes. I don't remember exactly the instance, but it was a Cubs game and Cubs were up at bat and the ump called a strike and Harry Carey goes, "If that was a strike, then I'm a Chinaman." And this was in the mid-90s, I want to say. So you already could not say stuff like that. But Harry Carey was a nut job. He just did not give a fuck. Here's another thing I think that you can appreciate, Matthew. Baseball, as a sport as a whole, I feel like, drinking and kind of not necessarily taking care of yourself in the best way is something that goes along with that sport, and people have been able to do that and still be very successful in Major League Baseball. Wade Boggs, obviously, drinking 107 beers in a day. Harry Carey went on, what is this? 288 days of uninterrupted drinking. That's the longest bender that I think I've ever heard of, outside maybe like Keith Richards. So Harry Carey,
I think I know several people that have been on a longer bender, so that doesn't even impress me.
That does a 288 days does not impress you. I
couldn't do it.
I hear you,
but I'm not in the fight.
It's like Wade Boggs.
What's that?
He said Wade Boggs. He said it's like Wade Boggs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think that just kind of tells you that Harry Carey, he can hack it. He can hack it with the best of them. And obviously, if he does some stuff like that to his body and can keep going for like years after that, I mean, he's not a guy to mess around with.
He's been through the ringer if he's slugging that many.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard a story once, and nobody fact-checked this because I don't know.
I'll just go by your word on this one.
Yeah. But I did a little research. So he was coaching, Don Cherry was coaching in OHL, the OHL team in Mississauga in the 2001-2002 season. And I heard a story that, and a lot of times in a lot of training camps for hockey, and I believe this was the season that this took place, there's like they say no fighting. Like no fighting in training camp, right? No fighting when there's guys trying to make the team. You don't want people getting hurt. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of these guys at the time coming up through really until within the past probably 8 years, a lot of guys make their career by fighting, right? So they're like, well, how am I going to make this team if I don't fight? So they do it anyway. So Don Cherry was coaching this team in Mississauga, and there was a rule for the camp, no fighting. So first day of camp goes by, like the team scrimmages, and there was not a single fight. And the next day, Don Cherry called the captains of the team into the locker room and pretty much told them, like, if somebody doesn't fight in this game, like, I'm just going to cut everybody and sell the team. Virtually, like, is what he's saying. And the training camp that day started with, like, I think it was like 9 or 10 straight fights, like without the puck even being touched. Like puck drop, fight, puck drop, fight, puck drop, fight. People were just looking who jumped on the ice. If it was a guy their size, didn't matter the position, they were jumping out, lining up next to him, and they were ready to throw just to impress him. That's tough as nails. If you want to see, I got another stat for you.
The guy's willing to scrap his own team if the captain's
a couple stats. When he was playing in the AHL, 70 games played, 118 penalty minutes. 64 games played, 197 penalty minutes. 70 games played, 106 penalty minutes. Like until almost the very end of his year, like of his career, as he started to get older in the late 60s, early 70s, like the dude was fighting, or not even necessarily fighting, but the dude was not playing any type of soft hockey. The dude was just out there doing whatever he could to win. And that is a time where hockey is not an easy sport to be played. Those dudes were beating the fucking piss out of each other night in and night out, knowing it was going to happen, and they still wanted to go out there and do it. So you're telling me that this fucking guy, baseball guy, is going to come in and kick Don Cherry's ass? It's a load of bullshit.
Here's what I am telling you.
Don Cherry would do it. Don Cherry would do it in the most creative three-piece suit you'd ever seen, and then he'd do a quick brush off, fix his pocket square, and he'd walk away like it never happened.
Here's what I am telling you. That a guy like Harry Carey is in no way going to be intimidated by that. And with all of that experience that Don Cherry had comes hubris. And as we all know, that's exactly what comes. Pride cometh before the fall, and that's exactly what would happen in this fight. Harry Carey would not be diminished. Don Cherry coming in there hot. He's a hot guy. He's a hot-headed guy. And I'm not saying...
No, he's not coming in there hot, though. He knows what he's doing. He's coming in there.
I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Dude, he's coming in there and feeding Harry Carey. He's feeding him.
But that's what you think, and that's what he thinks. So he's going to come in there and be like, "Oh, I'm just going to annihilate this guy."
There's a difference
Harry Carey
dodges
and weaves and ducks away.
Yes, and when
there's
you have
a big difference between cockiness and confidence. Huge difference between cocky and confident.
Right, that's
cocky
true.
Would be if you walked in there throwing Conor McGregor at him. Don Cherry's walking in there dressed to the nines, confident, like, dude, I've fought way tougher guys than this fucking baseball schmuck. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to beat the shit out of him, and I'm going to go have a nice steak dinner.
Yeah,
and then I'm going to announce a hockey game.
You're kind of proving my
point. And I'm
going
to do coach's corner.
There, thinking that he's going
to come in there confident.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Harry Carey, not going to be intimidated by that. That guy, Harry Carey, is crazy enough where he's never going to know when enough is enough. He's never going to know when to quit. And so because of that, he's never going to. And I think unless the end,
Don Cherry hits him with the 1-2 and he's laying flat on his back in the middle of the street.
That's not gonna knock Harry Carey down, though. Is what I'm telling you. Harry Carey.
How do you know? Have you ever been punched by Don Cherry?
No, but I'm looking at both these guys, and I'm telling you that that's what's going on.
All right, You
guys are underestimating those glasses, man. The glasses just give him X-ray vision. He's seeing those punches coming from a mile away.
You can see the fucking future with those.
Just counter one of them. Yeah. Counter one of those, land it right on the jaw of Don, and I don't know, man.
Like old school, and Don Cherry's coming in. He's like, oh, listen up, fella. Like I'm gonna knock you.
And most of Cherry's fights are on skates. Maybe being on the feet is a disadvantage for him. Who knows?
Oh my God, Pio! That's just the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard. Pio,
I don't know.
You think it's more difficult to fight on hard, solid ground than it is on ice skates?
Come on,
it's so different.
But it's
no,
dude,
it's way different. It's way different.
Okay, so you're telling me if he has the ability to keep his balance on the ice, he wouldn't have the ability to say, dude, he punched.
I don't think there's a direct translation.
No. I'm not saying balance. He's going to grab on to like the jersey, like a normal like hockey fight, and kind of like push and pull and knock him off his edges. When you're on the street, you're not grabbing on the guy's shoulder, like walking in, like circling around in 360s. Like both of you are just kind of squaring up. Maybe a kick gets thrown, someone slips, maybe like a punch misses. The guy can move around you a lot easier. Like you're not falling on the edges, and it's not the stereotypical like hockey fight where like you hold on to the guy's sweater.
Anybody who was a successful hockey fighter could be a bare knuckle brawler. The amount of leg strength they have, like they are so centered, they are so in control of their body. If you are good enough to skate at an NHL level, even if you're a fighter, you have such good body control and on top of that, you can step into a punch on the ground way harder than you can on ice skates, because if you overcommit to a punch on ice skates, you're going to fall down. When you're on the ground, Don Cherry takes a step, catches him right across the chin. I just looked because it's usually a big thing that I focus on. They're about the same height. They're an inch apart. Don Cherry's actually 5'11", and Harry Carey's
that's a good call.
6. So they're about the same size as far as.
Yeah, but with ice you can dig into it. Like when you're pushing for a stride, you can push into a punch. It's almost like a Superman punch. When you're on land, that's just driving thigh muscle.
Not when you're locked up with somebody and they're giving I think you're underestimating how difficult it is. Dude, it's way more difficult to fight on skates than it is on land, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree in that.
So how? Yeah, I know, but you're saying that's going to throw him. It's not going to throw him off. It's only going to make him a better fighter.
It's not going to throw him off, but it's going to be different because he's not fighting the same style.
And another big part of street fighting. This is something that I've never brought up when we've done like athletes versus non-athletes before. Is that Don Cherry, being an athlete, obviously has decent footwork, right? Like he can move.
Yeah.
How do I know that Harry Carey might be stuck in mud. He might be staying Paulo on the back end, just getting his shit kicked in.
You know what?
Harry Carey's got some weight to him too. He's not too nimble.
He does have that weight to him. He absolutely does.
God.
And Harry Carey.
And the thing is,
listen, hold on. He's got that Mickey Mantle gene. You know what I'm saying?
The Mickey Mantle gene.
He's got that Mickey Mantle gene. Harry Carey's one of those Mickey Mantle gene guys. And you can never underestimate those guys.
Well, how about we do this?
They can surprise you.
How about we do this, Andy? What we always do. Mm-hmm. We'll lock in our answers.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, even though, once again, I know that I am correct, but we will let social media decide. Because I think I'm undefeated. I honestly think I might be undefeated in Who Would Win of the Weeks on social media. I don't know if I've ever lost. Kids Next Door, they got blown out.
Which is
that was your.
That's still one that I'm sore.
They weren't even close.
Because
You're talking about a group of cartoon kids versus the Ocean's crew. Mm-hmm. They rob casinos.
So what? Whatever.
Regardless,
that's
Andy,
not this fight.
All right. Andy, lock in your answer, please, for the listeners.
Okay. Harry Carey is going to take this fight. He can hit hard. He's got that weight. And most importantly, I think he does not know that it's a possibility for him to lose. I think that he's kind of an ignorant guy. And in this sense, ignorance is not only bliss, but it's beneficial.
Don Cherry was the same way. Obviously, you see what happened to his career. Like, he didn't give a fuck what came out of his mouth.
Oh, and that's where I think they're pretty evenly matched. That's where I think they're pretty evenly matched. So
then you take the fact that Don Cherry played professional hockey and probably the toughest era to ever play hockey in.
Okay.
And then you're gonna say that Harry Carey is gonna step out from behind his desk while he's calling a Cubs game. He's gonna kick his ass. Yeah, suck me, buddy.
I am saying
that's just not true.
That's
You're
exactly
locking your answer.
Man, I don't know. Both sides have got good opinions here, but I gotta go Don Cherry. I think that guy's just kind of an animal. And the thing is like, Don isn't gonna say no. Like, even if he's losing and Harry Carey is choking him out and he can't see anymore, something's deep down.
Don Cherry,
the Canadian,
he's always ready. He's ready for a Donnybrook at all time, and he's gonna throw bombs. He's gonna have a good bout. He's gonna win that fight. Yeah. I'm also locking in Don Cherry, if you can't tell. Andy, listen, I don't like being wrong either, so I don't want you to take.
Well, that's not something that I have to worry about. So I guess I feel bad for you.
All right, but the answer locked in. Don Cherry grabs 2 votes. So he won either way, but we're still going to throw it over to social media. I know that my people will take care of me and keep me on my trail of success. And Andy, I promise you'll get it one day. I really do. I hope the best for you in your future.
I'm right every time. I'm just going to say it. I'm right every single time. I know that sometimes people vote differently.
Andrew, you used to have a picture. You used to have a Post-it note on your door that said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So you continually pick losers and lose and then try to sit here and say you win. That's insane. That's certifiably insane. You defined it for me. I knew that as a young child because you had it on your door.
Look, just because people say it on social media doesn't mean that it's correct. Now, I respect our audience.
What do you mean? Everything on social media is true.
But I don't have to agree with the way that they
What? You're telling me that there's false information on the internet?
I'll send you some links. I'll send you some links.
Okay, yeah, let me know. Oh yeah, well, I mean, hey, I really do like that. Who would win of the week, though? I hope. I hope
that was a good one. Yeah. I'm interested to see what social media has to say because I do think a lot of people might have some skewed opinions.
It's always interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't get any political backlash based off of Don Cherry's.
I wasn't even considering that.
Insensitivity. I don't think we will because we're talking about prime Don Cherry. We're not, and we're not talking about him as a person. We've done a lot worse people, I think, in Who Would Win. We did Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo was in jail.
Yeah, but Danny Trejo's a great guy, though. Like that's a different.
Yeah, who would get his ass kicked by The Rock?
Fuck you! I wish we could reopen that one.
No, it doesn't need to be Pio, you know how I brought up the height? You know who Danny Trejo is?
I don't.
He's like,
you know who Danny Trejo is?
Isn't he? He's in the what the fuck are those movies called?
Machete.
Spy Kids.
He is
like the grandpa on Spy Kids. I don't know if that helps.
Oh, yeah, I know who that is. He's in Breaking Bad too, is he not? Yeah, okay. No, he's a savage for sure.
Yeah, he's savage. Yes.
If you look
the dude would kick a lot of people's ass, but he would definitely fuck a lot of people up. But we had him fighting The Rock, and The Rock was 11 inches taller than him or some shit like that. And The Rock's a beast. And you think Danny Trejo's gonna win that fight? Thank you, Pio. Andy, you have to look at the stats.
Dude, anyway, I think The Rock would kill almost everybody he tried to make. What's his name? Andre the Giant, I think, would give The Rock the closest fight.
Who would? What was it? Yeah,
let me tell you something. Andre the Giant. I have been wanting to do Andre the Giant in a Who Would Win of the Week on here, and I think that Andre the Giant would take down anybody. Like that guy, You hear stories
You
about
wanna know
that guy
what
that are unbelievable. And there's that famous picture of him, obviously, like holding a beer can, and you see, like, you guys know what I'm talking
How
about?
small it is.
How small it is. It's like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I don't even have anything to like compare it
Andy,
to.
I think that you bringing that up, I think it would be really fun if
It's like that. That's
I got a really good
undeniable.
idea. I got a really good idea. But I'm gonna sit on it for a little bit. I'm
Okay.
gonna sit on it. Um, but yeah. So I mean, we've been going for about almost an hour and 15 minutes here or so, right? So
Wow, this has been a long one.
yeah, I'll probably close it out soon. But Andy, you got anything else that you really wanted to touch on before we get out of here? Or?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just interested, I guess, Eric, if you have any opinions on this. I find it kind of curious, but like, it seems to me that like in a time when cable and network TV are dying, they're basically on their last legs with like streaming services and everything. Sports is like the one thing that is acting as a tentpole for traditional media like that. Like sports, you can watch anything, stream it on Amazon Prime, Netflix, whatever. But if you want to see your team play on Sunday, you still have to tune in to CBS or NBC or whoever, whatever broadcast network is playing that game. How long do you think that's going to last?
Like you're saying that I can turn on like the TV and watch the Bills game.
Well, I mean, like obviously there are
here,
massive
let me put it
sports
in this
contracts involved with these networks and stuff. But
with TV,
yeah.
But
I
think
when
that's
those
gonna last
expire,
a while.
Okay, you think?
Well, let me chime in real quick and put it this way. So I understand what you're saying, Eddie. You're looking at it more as how long do you think it's going to last that these networks have these games until like either like here. Let me say this: there's a big trend right now as you look as specifically in college, but really in all sports, especially as within the next less than 5 years, with I think by 2025, the majority of the major college conferences, their deals are up. The NHL's deal is up after this next season, and it's already been known that ESPN is going to bid on it. Like stuff like that. The NFL is constantly changing as far as they have different contracts for Sundays, Thursdays, Mondays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's this big trend in these specific even like, and really it all started with like MSG and Yes Network and stuff like that, right? Like all of a sudden you have these niche channels that obviously in New York, they're broadcast all over, but then you see like the SEC network, even like the Pac-12, I think now has their own network. And yeah, they're a big conference, but like Pac-12, like, I mean, don't watch that much college basketball, but Pac-12 football isn't notoriously one of the better, like, top 5 conferences or whatever in college football. So as these sports start to trend to, and then you've got the NFL network, you've got the NHL network, you've got MLB, you've got, you know what I mean? They've all got these specialized, and you've got the tickets, and you could watch all these games all over the place. How long do you think it's going to be? So you're working with CBS compared to working with one of these specialized networks. Is that what you're talking about, Andy? Or are you looking more as TV to like online streaming and stuff like that?
That's kind of what I'm talking about. I mean, what does the future for this look like? Is it the NFL? When is it going to be that it's more profitable for the NFL to control the airing of all their games themselves on their own type of subscription streaming platform or something? When is it going to be more profitable for them to control all of that internally and cut off these deals with these networks, which, like I said, for the networks, that's basically their last big leg to stand on is sports.
Yeah, I think regular TV and cable is almost completely out the door. Like you said, sports is the last leg that's kind of keeping it alive. Like if you turn on, I don't know, Channel 4 or whatever, and you can watch the Bills game on Sundays. But I don't have cable at my house. None of my friends that I know have cable at their house. We just stream everything, so you can just find like a Reddit stream for the Bills game, and you're just watching it from there. So when it comes down to like sports reporting jobs, yeah, if you're calling the actual game with the affiliation of the teams, you'll always have those types of jobs. You always need the color commentators, the play-by-plays, and the pregame and postgame shows. But I couldn't tell you the last time I watched like the Bills pregame and postgame show. As soon as the game's done, the stream ends, I go and do my other thing, or I only turn it on until 7 when the actual kickoff happens. So those jobs are kind of getting depleted. In the regular local sports reporting people, those jobs are depleting too. Same with like the writers for Buffalo News. Nobody's really ordering the paper anymore. Everybody gets their news on Twitter. So now you got to buy the online subscription to the Buffalo News. And if you're not tuning into channel 2, 4, or 7 in the morning, you're just kind of following those people along on Twitter. So it's becoming a lot more media relevant. But I'm wondering, when do you think they're going to make it almost like an a la carte type of cable where it's like they come to me and say, okay, pick whatever channels you want. I really only want NHL Network, ESPN, one news station, and I don't know, Disney XD. I don't know, just some random thing in there. Like I can only now pick whatever shows I want to watch and pay for that instead of paying for all cable, and I'm not even watching 100 of the stations that they give me. I think that's the way it's going to go. Is like, also if one person or one company is able to make a monopoly and put Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, ESPN, NFL Network, NHL Network all together on one streaming service, and you pay $100 a month and you get all of that together, I think they're just going to capitalize completely. It might be too much of a monopoly, though. I know that some companies, you can't own more than like 3 TV stations, 1 radio station in the same city.
Yeah.
So
I
there,
like,
but it's the way we're going.
Like that's kind of what it's kind of what's happening right now with the Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus, because you could watch. You could pay
because now Disney owns
one flat subscription. Yeah, so you can pay for one flat subscription and get all 3 of those services. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to and Hulu has live sports, obviously ESPN does as well, and then Disney's got more of your shows and movies kind of aspect. So it's interesting to think about that. Like, what if a service came, or what if a company came and created a bundle with all of these different aspects? It's interesting to think about, but I don't think that unless it really comes down to the pick and choose kind of thing, I don't think that's ever plausible, because there's always going to be people who don't want to pay for things that they don't watch. Like you were saying, right? Like, I don't have cable anymore, but at my old house had cable, and given there was 9 of us, but I do think that we had the highest cable bill probably in all of New York State, maybe of all time. Like, Spectrum was absolutely making bank off of us because there was 9 of us. So not only did we have cable, but we had NHL, we had the whole sports package. We had a lot of Game of Thrones fans, so we had HBO. We paid for every subscription that you possibly could have. It would be like probably $30 to $40 a guy per month for our cable bill, which was absolutely absurd, but we were all just too lazy to ever go out and cancel anything. But I agree, like that, dude, we didn't watch half the shit. Half the games we watched, we streamed anyway. You know what I mean? Because you want to watch a game that, like, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and it's interesting to look at from both of you, because Andy being behind the scenes where he's working as master control compared to where you would be as in front of the camera, it's the same industry, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously yours is more sports focused, and the Twitter aspect I think is interesting too, because you look at guys like Matt Beauvais is one that always comes to mind, or even Mike Harrington. Like those guys are Buffalo sports writers that really have grown a social media following, because now they're pumping that content out instantly. And then once you see the update, oh my God, Mike Harrington just tweeted that Taylor Hall is coming to the Sabres. Then the next day, if that still interests you, then you go read that article that's in the Buffalo News or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's an interesting thing to talk about too, of how important. So for everything now, like even us, we talk about it from a podcast perspective. Like how do you want to get more people to tune in to what you're doing? Oh, everybody's on their phone 24 hours a day, right? Pump shit on there. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. I don't know what you think about it, Andy, but
well, there was a lot floating around and everything that you just
said. Yeah, I know. That's why we got off the. I know. I get off the rails. I can't help it, but like
well, that's exactly the thing. I mean, things are moving so fast now, and everything's changing a lot more quickly than it ever has before. So it's easy to get caught up in all kinds of stuff. That's what just happened, right? You're definitely not alone there. I think that
it's easy to get caught up in all kinds of stuff.
But
so don't do drugs, kids.
or give it a shot.
The PSA from Two in a Cooler.
Don't do drugs unless
do you do drugs, Danny?
You think they'll benefit you.
Yeah.
But as far as streaming stands right now, I think that there's more benefit in competition in the marketplace between those big three: Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu. I'm just trying to unpack that.
Well,
but,
I know you're.
Yes, I'm just wondering when when it's going to be more beneficial to each organization, each league to have their own. Obviously they have their own channels and stuff, but to have basically their own streaming services where, yes, you get all kinds of original content, different shows. You could probably consolidate that into shows for each team. My question, I guess, to you, Eric, would be, if that's where it's going, is there going to get to a point where it's more beneficial for broadcasters like yourself to familiarize themselves more deeply, focus basically entirely on just one sport?
Yes and no, because I feel like if you focus on one sport, it's almost like same thing with an athlete. Like if you put all your eggs in one basket, it might break and then you might lose everything. But there's also an upside to it. If you focus on one sport, you might know more people in that business compared to the other sports. You're obviously going to know a lot more information compared to the other sports, and you might be able to be an unbelievable insider because you've been around it for so many years compared to somebody that's kind of had like a hand or a finger in every single sport but doesn't know one sport all the way down to its like base details. So yes and no. If you're looking for the most the highest percentage of getting a job in broadcasting, know every sport, obviously, because there's more teams and more leagues.
That's the way it's going to stay, though. Because obviously, if you're trying to get a job as like a local network anchor, it does help because you have to cover every sport. But as the leagues consolidate their content, if you will, including games and stuff, is the trend going to sort of start to lean the other way for broadcasters, and what will benefit?
I think so.
Okay.
Because if the fans are going to buy their own individual access towards that show, they're going to be like really good fans of it, obviously. So if somebody buys the NBA exclusive, they're going to want to like have that broadcaster break down the play to the absolute base to show like almost like the footwork of the guy driving to the lane.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing for any other sport. So if you are
almost like how Tony Romo is with football, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
So if one person's buying the individual stream, you're going to need better broadcasters that know the sports more. But you could also look at Max Kellerman, who's now with Stephen A. Smith. That dude's a boxing guy. He came strictly from boxing, and now he's talking about making his opinions about the NHL go worldly, saying that nobody cares about the sport. Dude, he came from boxing. That's a tangent. But he was a guy that kind of came from somewhere. Yeah, like how can you talk about a sport that's irrelevant when you've got less than us and fans? People just tune in to see blood, and they don't even actually understand the nitty-gritty of the sport. But that's a perfect example of a guy that came from a different sport, and now he's talking about all of them together. But as time progresses, I think it's going to be the opposite. Somebody from ESPN is going to go back to their original sport and be a heavy insider.
Right. Okay, I get that. Yeah, I could definitely see, living in a world where those sort of general sports shows. Although I will say those general sports shows, I think, are.
I don't think they'll ever die, though. I don't think ESPN.
Let me tell you. is because those general sports shows are more so personality-driven than content-driven.
1,000%.
Stephen A. Smith is he's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Half the time he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Have you ever seen the battle between Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith?
No.
So, like, Stephen A. Smith would report a lot of the boxing or MMA fights, and he did the one for Cowboy Cerrone and Conor McGregor. And at the end, obviously, everybody knows McGregor knocked out Cowboy within, like, the first 10, 15 seconds, whatever it is. And at the end, Stephen A. Smith's like, yeah, we didn't see too much from Conor. He got a couple of lucky punches or shoulders in there. And then Joe Rogan just tore him apart. He's like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. We saw everything. Nobody even knew he was going to hit him with these shoulders. Like, you just have to know what you're looking for to be able to dissect such a very detailed sport like boxing or MMA. So it kind of brings back to the point that if you're too generic, the viewers that truly care aren't going to listen to you as much as they would listen to Joe Rogan because he's been there for the past 30 years and he knows everything about it. So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to go back to the individual sports.
Yeah. Wow. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Man, excellent. Well, Matthew, what do you say?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good place to end it on.
I think definitely. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Pio, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome. We always love talking sports. We got some good stories, good who would win of the week. So thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me on here. This is awesome. I didn't even realize how long we were going. This is the first time I looked up at the clock. It's been a minute.
Yeah, we get a little carried away. So we try to keep it short, but sometimes you just can't help.
Well,
but
no, I had a good time. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, no. Hey, listen, it was a great talk. I'm sure people are really going to like it. And I was happy to have you on. Andy, before you send us home, I just want to say, again, thank you, Pio. Andy, I love you. And also, thank goodness there was no paranormal activity this week. So we kind of got away scot-free. But we recorded a little early this Wednesday.
Right,
so maybe that's why I wanted to record early.
It is not yet the
stay away from the
hour.
ghosts and ghouls. Yeah. It's not witching hour yet. Yeah. So.
All right.
But all right, guys.
Okay. Matt, love you too. Eric, awesome. Thank you for coming on. Let's get out of here, guys. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.